we're live.
We
are live. Welcome. Hey. I want everybody to look at their clocks right now. What time is it? We're on time, right?
We're on time.
We are on time.
Nice.
Welcome to the stream. It's good to have you guys here. I think the last one we did was probably around extinction time, right? So it's been a few months.
Extra Life.
Or Extra Life, yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. So it's been a few months. We thought we would, jump back on stream and go over some of the cool things we have going on. We'll start with some quick introductions. I am Cedric. You might know me on Twitter as Complex Minded. Here's Chris. He's our lead designer, lead programmer. I'm sure you've seen him trolling around on Reddit a little bit.
That's
Jen.
right.
Everybody knows Jen. She's our community manager, lover of parasaurs. And Colin, he's our senior producer here. Just want to give you guys some quick introductions, to get us started with. We have a lot to talk about. We have a lot we want to go through. So let's go ahead and get started. I guess you saw the Homestead trailer on the open. A lot of cool stuff in there. Lots of interesting builds that we wouldn't be able to do before Homestead. So
yeah, it's very exciting.
So it's really cool to see that. Jen, talk a little bit more about Homestead.
Actually, before we do that, I am going to briefly mention a couple of things that are important, which is that we do know that our EU server network is down right now. We have our lovely Adam Little Panda. He's on the scene. He's taking care of that. So we do know our EU servers are down. Don't freak out. We are working on it. We do know that our Prim Plus PC is also down right now, so if you try to launch it, it's going to immediately crash. So we do know about that. And we have a little issue with the S Plus mod on PC right now. So if you've been using Structures Plus before you got Homestead today, there's some issues with structure snapping, and we're going to do our best to get that fixed up for you guys ASAP. So anyone who's also using the Structures Plus mod along with Homestead will be able to use everything properly. So speaking of Homestead, what's the major thing that we're talking about today is Homestead. We have all of our amazing new structure pieces, triangle building, which is, the most exciting thing.
It's amazing some of the things you can do with triangle pieces. Whoever thought a triangle piece would allow you to build all some of the cool stuff that we're seeing.
Yeah, at that point you go from boxes to all of the angles, all possibilities are open, and you can build
octagon,
round, and then you can make hallways that offshoot and just completely different shaped structures.
And you guys will see some more of. If you didn't catch the trailer when we're opening, we'll end up showing that again as we kind of end out. So, and we have some other stuff. Some of the community has built some really cool things on our public test. So you'll see that in a little bit here.
Yeah, so the stream today, we're going to be talking about basically everything that's going on in the world of ARK right now, all of the changes that come with the Homestead update we're going to go over. Also, the Kibble rework, of course, is the second big half of this update, which we know a lot of people are excited for and has been a few years coming. I personally am very excited to see this finally in the game. I can remember quite a while ago I would just kind of poll people on Reddit, on my Twitter, and get their feedback on what would be best. And we finally got it together. So we hope that you guys enjoy that. I know there might be a little issue with aberration creatures not accepting the right kibbles just yet. So we are already aware of that. So if there's any issues, feel free to report those to us and we'll get them looked at soon.
There are people running behind the scenes, really crazy trying to get things fixed. So
yeah, exactly.
Don't worry. We're on it, and we're very aware of things that are going on right now.
Yeah, we're aware of it as soon as you guys are, sometimes before, and we're hard at work on it. I think this is probably a good place to kind of frame what we're doing in terms of streaming. So, our goals with streaming are to save our streams for when we have a sizable chunk of content, a piece of update, a new update, a new feature, something along those lines that we want to showcase and talk about, and then collect things around that. And so that's kind of the approach I think that we're going to be taking with streaming, over the next however long to try it out and see how it goes.
Yeah. So instead of having something that's scheduled every week, every 2 weeks, every month, it's going to be basically whenever we feel like we have enough things to talk about and things to share that's new information that's going to get you guys excited to hear about it. So definitely pay attention to our Twitter, which is Survive the Ark, and where you're watching us right now on Twitch and Mixer, and we'll be sure to have more of these things and share whatever we're working on with you.
And if you guys have any cool ideas for things you'd like to see on stream, things that you want to see us do, even if they're silly, you want to see us, eat some hot wings or something like that, whatever it may be, feel free to give us that feedback, because we're always looking to engage. We're always looking to, do the things that you want to see us do. So feel free to, hit Jen up or hit Survive the ARK up and let us know if there's something cool you want to see us do on stream.
Yeah, I guess
Absolutely.
just to add to that, I would say, mainly, while we want to increase frequency overall, we just want to make sure it's as meaningful as possible when we're showing you guys new stuff. I mean, while it'd probably be cool to watch me maybe fly a quadcopter and eat as many popsicles as I could on stream, I don't think you guys really want to see that.
All right.
So let's get into some questions and answers. And if you missed the introduction, sorry, I feel like you may have missed me say, this is Chris. He's our lead designer, lead programmer, sorry. You know Jen, she's our community manager, and Colin is our senior producer. So just wanted to go over that in case anyone missed it. So let's get into something that we all like. It's questions and answers. So these questions and answers are coming from our community crunch. If you pay attention to survivetheark.com, you'll notice that every week we do a community crunch, and it's filled with cool things from the community, cool builds, cool dinos, colors that we haven't seen, and also we open it up to you to give us questions that we can cover on the stream. So if you'd like to see your question covered on the stream, make sure that you're submitting entries for community crunch, because that's where we get this content from.
Yeah, and we take all the questions and we form it into something else called an ARK digest, which we do from time to time once we have enough interesting questions for us to answer. And we're going to do a live version of that right now.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So
yeah.
as Cedric mentioned, these questions were already submitted, I guess it was 2 crunches ago when I asked for questions. So we're going to hit on some of the popular ones that I saw. So I'm going to go ahead and read those off. Question number 1. How will our unofficial servers be affected by the Homestead update if we're already running the S Plus mod?
Yeah, so the plan for this is that we knew that when we pulled the S Plus features internal and we implemented them into the core game, there would be some changes we wanted to make quality of life a little better. We need to change the meshes, things like that. Some of those things will be incompatible with the mod. So what we created is an escape hatch. It's an option that you can add on your unofficial server to disable the Homestead version of S Plus in favor of the mod, so that you can keep running with the standard version of that. And unfortunately, as Jen said, there's a small issue with the S Plus mod at the moment, but we're confident there's an easy fix there on our end.
We've got question number 2. Is Homestead going to work with Primitive Plus with all the different building types? And will we see any Primitive Plus getting any love on Xbox in particular?
So, the good news is, yes, S Plus is compatible with Prim Plus, so it's very exciting that we're able to bring that to you guys. And as far as new Prim Plus servers for Xbox, we are always monitoring demand from our players, and we want to respond to that as soon as we can. So as we see demand spool up, we would definitely stand up more servers accordingly.
Very good to hear.
Yeah, there's one kind of small thing to add to that. While the primitive plus version of Homestead, the Homestead update, will support triangle foundations and all the new Homestead features for the vanilla structures, we have not added support to the Primitive Plus specific.
Absolutely. So I think what you're hearing is you can expect to be able to use the Homestead features in Prim Plus, but some of the things like the triangle foundations, you won't expect to see lumber or the very special structure sets that are in Primitive Plus. Those won't necessarily have the pieces that Homestead has.
Right, that's correct.
I do want to mention, so the questions that we're answering right now are from the Community Crunch, but if you guys have any questions in particular to Homestead or in particular to any of us that are sitting up here right now, you guys can type them in the chat. We have our lovely producer, John, in the other room. He's going to be collecting any interesting questions from our Twitch chat or Mixer chat, so feel free to write them in there for us. Our next Community Crunch question, however, is what's planned next for ARK development? And are we done with ARK, or is there more coming?
So it's an exciting time for ARK. So as we said at the end of 2018, we're the team that's running ARK now. Those of us sitting here, and when we posted that, we said that we had big plans for it. And one of the approaches that we're taking this year and with this team is one where, we're taking a little more time internally to work up a solid plan and a solid deliverable before we bring it forth and share it with you guys, because we want to make sure we have something that's ready for you to consume. So as far as it comes to this year, this is our first beat, the Homestead update. It's one that we've long wanted to do. It's one that includes features that some of us, Jen especially, cares about, kibble. And it's something that was near and dear to our hearts, and this was the perfect time to do it. We have more awesome things planned this year, and we're not quite ready to talk about them yet.
But they are awesome.
They are awesome.
They are things, and they are awesome.
Exactly. And I think kind of piggybacking off of what I said earlier, the plan is with this new streaming format, with this new update format, with this new approach, that we'll make sure that we rally around that. And as soon as we're ready to talk about it, and it's exciting enough to share with you guys, we'll make sure we do that.
Good to hear. We've got another question here. It says, are there any plans to add new game modes like Small Tribes or Conquest? And our question submitter asks in particular about 1 or 2-person tribe servers.
So we love all of our game modes. We have, we obviously launched Small Tribes last year. It was a big success. It was, we launched it originally as an experiment. It was more successful than we imagined it would be initially, and it showed a very real need for that, both in ARK's development and whatever we do next. And in terms of new ones, obviously there was the Conquest set. There's all the existing ones that we support. We're always looking for and thinking about what's next, and we do have some ideas that we're tossing around, but again, we're not quite ready to share those today. There's a pattern here.
Surprise, surprise.
There's
more of
there's
that
been one
pattern.
suggestion that I think is pretty cool. It's like mammals only. I don't know.
Mammals only.
Yeah.
Ooh, I haven't heard that one. Oh, that's cool.
I think that would be interesting. Just like have beavers and saber-tooth and mammoths and no gigas, no rexes. Or
That would be
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it
That
is,
we throw around.
like the Small Tribes one is one that this team put together and launched together, and like I said, we're passionate about it and we enjoyed it, and some of us even played on Small Tribes, and liked playing in that version of the game, and so we're evaluating what other options we have.
Excellent. So, this has been a quite popular question that we get. I get it on Twitter. I see it on survivetheark.com all the time. And it's about Scorched Earth Ascension. And the question always is, do we have plans to add Ascension to Scorched Earth?
Well, I'll field the love on this one. So the plan is we are not planning to support any form of Ascension for Scorched Earth. When we released it as a final and finished product, and that's how it's going to stay. Ultimately, Ascension was always planned for the island, but it was not planned for Scorched Earth, and we really feel that through our lore and our Explorer notes, we really explained it well and kept up with the story beats. And actually, if you dig into them enough, you can sort of see where the people traveled to and how they did travel.
Yeah, as Colin mentioned, if you feel like there's some type of missing information, if you're really into the lore of ARK, it's Helena's notes in Scorched Earth that talk about how she gets from Scorched Earth, to the next place. That's what Ascension is. It's how our survivors travel from ARK to ARK. And instead of going through the Ascension process, you can look through Helena's Explorer notes, and she talks about how she does it.
Yeah, and it's something that we toyed with for a while. There was a period of time that it was considered, but really, I think it's the right call to devote the resources that would be necessary to do that towards making better, newer and better, and expanding the experiences for you guys.
Yeah, and Scorched Earth is kind of it's had its time, and it's a finished whole thing by itself, and we'd like to continue working on new things. We've got question number 6 here. It says, will we get an option for single player to allow flyer speed upgrade anytime soon?
Oh, that's a good one. So there was the flyer nerf a long time ago. And it was a necessary change. It was necessary for official, for PvP. I think it was necessary for single player and PvE as well. It was necessary to keep the game somewhat grounded and to drive you to experience more of the richness of the full game and the full content. We don't currently have plans at this time to expose an option like this. We do evaluate from time to time which options would make sense to expose, like the one I talked about earlier, with the ability to disable our version of S+.
Yeah, for sure.
We just have to be careful which ones we implement. One of the challenges we faced, like we kicked off this stream with, there are a couple of live issues when this patch came out.
Yeah.
And the reality is that all of these different options, like all the options that we expose, all the mods, things like that, the reality is some of them use things in a way that we didn't quite expect, that we weren't quite sure of.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever we make a change, we make sure we test the area around that change. But with an option like this, it's very easy, or with the number of options we have and the number of mods we have, it's very easy for some little thing like an update to S+ last week or an option like this to break something that's in an area we're not even testing.
Yeah.
And so, we have to be careful. Generally speaking, what we do is we evaluate them and we decide based on kind of the number of people that would take advantage of such a feature and what it would add to the game. And at this time, we feel like it's serviced reasonably well by mod support on PC. I think there have been a couple people, for example, with this update asking about maintaining the old kibble hierarchy. And it's, again, a similar thing. I think for us to maintain the old kibble hierarchy would require us to effectively duplicate all of the underlying support for the dynos and maintain that. And it'll make it harder for us to bring updates to you guys timely. It'll make it harder to make sure that those things continue to work for you guys. And so we really feel like that's the place where mods fit in and provide the best support for features like that.
And to piggyback off of that, I mean, before I came into development, I would be one of those people like, why can't you just flip the switch? Just flip the switch. And then you realize it's like,
the button.
Or the button. This one is a switch though.
Okay.
Then you realize it's like butterfly effect. You change that one thing and then you see everything else change around it. And then you're chasing all these other things and trying to fix these problems. So it's a lot more complicated than people might give it credit for, to just be able to enable something like that. As Chris was saying, there's a network of things that, rely on something like that. So you have to check all those things as well. So just to, reiterate what you're saying, totally understand.
Yeah, it's something that's important to us. And, we do keep our finger on the pulse of the community and, we're aware of the things that you care about. And we prioritize them, obviously, with the Homestead update coming as a free update for everybody. We prioritize those things and try to package them together in a way that is beneficial to everybody involved.
Yep.
Absolutely. I noticed that WC Panda was posting in the chat a second ago. He said he's redeploying our EU servers right now.
Yay!
So there might be a couple that aren't up yet. I'm sure he's keeping track of them. And he also mentioned if there's any wipes that happened, he's going to fix those too. Because there might be if your server comes up and you don't see anything on it, assume that it's going to be taken back down and he'll put the save back up. So he's handling it. I see him typing in the chat. Thank you, Panda.
Yeah, thanks, Panda.
See, told you they're hard at work. There is always someone hard at work. It's a perfect segue to kind of discuss the current state of the game or the state of the game. So we talked a little bit about, Extinction. That was one of our biggest releases that we just had. Really cool. I think everybody had a blast working on Extinction and even enjoying it. We were playing it in the office. We had a lot of fun with the name Managarmer.
Yeah.
A lot of late night.
Yes.
We're aware that the Managarmer is strong. We built it to be an end-game creature, but to piggyback off of that, the joke originally was that the Managarmer's name was OP itself because nobody around the office could even pronounce it.
That's very true.
Some people started calling him Mr. Manager.
Yep.
Some people called it Managamar, and so we got it, but same with the tuning stuff. We're working on it.
For sure. But so we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we've been doing recently. We hit on some of them. Of course, you see the Homestead, but we want to talk about a little bit more about these things in detail. So I'll just start off with a couple of things I think was really cool about Extinction. It's the first time we've ever done mechs or kaijus. These
large Titanic scale creatures.
Large. I mean, it's amazing to see those. When you're standing next to them, I thought the Giga was big, and I thought the T-Rex was big, and the Bronto, but when you stand next to one of those, I mean, the sheer scale of it, you feel pretty insignificant compared to one of those as a human.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it was very cool to see that scale. I don't think we hadn't had anything in the game prior to that really showcased that scale at that grand level. So that was really cool to me, seeing that. What about you, Jen? What was one of your favorite parts?
My favorite part. It's hard to pick. I'm gonna pick the gas bag.
Gas bag.
Because it's such a cute. So we talked about internally, like, you need a cute creature, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like for Aberration, we had like our little lantern pets. You need to have the cuteness factor. And the gas bag for me, he's just so weird and cute, and it's like so chubby and squishable. And you can fly with it. It's just it's like ridiculous, but also perfect at the same time.
It's a very unique creature.
Yeah, it's very, very
it's
unique.
very different than things that we've done in ARK as far as with the gas. It's a flyer, but it's not a flyer. It's more of a floater.
It's a farter.
Yeah, it's a farter. So it was really cool to introduce some different things. I mean, those are things that different designs that we haven't really played around with before. Chris, what about, this is a new team, right? So tell us how, bringing together, I mean, pretty much the whole team was new, and this is our first DLC together, so a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I joined the team January of last year, and Judd is on the who's on the team, was here. He worked on Aberration. You were here, of course, working on Prim Plus, and our task as Atlas was being developed my task was to work with Colin and build a new team up. And so very early on, we knew going into Extinction that we were going to take the reins, and we needed to build a team that was capable and able to support ARK for that expansion, as well as the live game and into the future. And it was exciting for me. Like I've worked in game development now for 12, 13 years, and I've been a manager a number of times, but this was the first time I got to build kind of a team, and it was really neat. We brought in someone as an AI expert on the team, Gabriel, who recently joined. We've got Alex, who's kind of our creature guy, and then Jim's handling combat, and T, who's working on some things that we'll talk about later. And of course Zane, who was here originally, originally QA up through is now kind of our balance designer and running things. But that was kind of the dev end of things, and we started in January. I think our first update that rolled out was the Easter update in TLC 2, and then we kind of took over for the whole year. And I'm very proud of what we did. I mean, it's very difficult to take over something as large as ARK.
Oh, for sure.
And it's very difficult to build a team while creating content of the scale of Extinction. And we delivered on the time frame that we were shooting for, and we've been able to kind of just leverage that and spin it into this year and carry that momentum forward with this update and with the other things that we've got planned for the year. And so it's a very exciting time.
Do you feel like you had any trouble jumping into ARK? Because ARK is such our fans are passionate. They have a certain way they like to do things. Like, do you feel, was it different jumping into other games than it was for ARK?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm from a more traditional game development background. So, like, I've worked on AAA games. I worked at Microsoft for a while. I worked on State of Decay. And the approach here, ARK obviously started as an early access game. It started as an indie game. It blows my mind how much it has grown. It blows my mind the amount of features that we have, the amount of creatures that we have, and it's kind of the thing that drives me back to that point about the options earlier. Like, the number of options that we have already, the number of creatures we have already, the amount of world and things like that already eclipse pretty much any other game. Like, it's as big as you can get, and we want to make sure that we can maintain a team that can keep that indie game feel and can support the game, and that's why it's important for us to choose which things we update and which things we add, and make calculated decisions there and add things that fit in so that we can continue to grow ARK the way that it was built.
Right.
Like grow it with that same passion that it was built, and make sure that it feels the same today as it did then.
And I think that's important to our consumers, our fans. Before I even joined the company, I think that's one of the things that just amazed me. Like, I installed the game one day, and an hour later, I had a content update with like 4 new dinos.
Yeah.
And like 2 hours later, there's another update with more content. And I think, it was very amazing to see the pace at which we were rapidly iterating in the earlier days. And, we're still iterating as well this day, or, now we still iterate at a pretty rapid pace.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, I think we've found a healthy balance for our team.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think, my background, like I said, is more from traditional game development, where it's a month or 2 or months between updates, and you want to find that right balance so that you have time to test things, so that you have time to think about it and make sure you're okay with this change going out before you release it. So that's kind of why we're taking the approach we have. We target Tuesdays for our release when we've got a patch ready. We don't target every Tuesday as a release, and if we have something critical that needs to go out, we'll release it when it's ready and when it's necessary. But typically, we like to package things, and especially with the approach we've been taking lately, we like to package things up into a slightly more meaningful chunk and get it out to people as a meaningful update to make it worth their while.
Yeah, and this is maybe something you and Colin can chime in on. I mean, production-wise, we did something a little different recently, right, with Homestead and the way that we did Structures Plus.
As far as, how do you mean?
The beta?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Colin was like, I did that?
No, I think one thing, I mean, Chris and I have a lot of discussions about sort of where we want to take the product, and beyond that, sort of where we want to take the process as a whole, internally and externally. And one of the big things we wanted to do now is sort of have a pre-release environment, or a beta, I guess you could say. And what we wanted to do is have an environment where we could put some of these changes and these implementation and these fixes out into the community, and have a private testing area where people could consume it. They could create content. They could utilize the things that we've now implemented into the game, and then obviously give us feedback, and we can check on bugs. And so I think that was clearly really successful this round. I mean, not only did we get some really cool content from the community, but it also was a great way beyond our awesome test team to just bring in more feedback and more testing to make sure what we're putting out there is going to be in a more ready and solid state for you guys at release.
And Chris, setting that up. So tell me what that's like, setting that up. Is it more work for you?
It is. Yeah, it is. So, it takes a bit of time, because we effectively have to fork we have to branch the game that we're supporting and maintain 2 copies of that. And if you were paying attention to the beta, there was a point actually where the live game caught up in versions, and we were like, what do we do? And when it surpassed it, we're like, okay, well, we'll just leave the beta over here. And it does take more resources to do that. And so it's the type of thing, going back to what I was saying about maintaining a team that's agile and maintaining a team that can continue to deliver new content and good experiences and bug fixes in a timely manner, we have to be careful about when we employ it. For something like this update, it makes perfect sense. Like, it kind of gave us a way to almost early access the update.
Yeah.
To give people the update and say, here's what we're thinking about, here's the approach, and then we come back and we adjust the health for the 4x walls, and then we adjust the snap points for various features, and we make changes and retune the kibble rework. And it isn't to say that it'll be perfect. Like, it's very difficult when you're making something on the scale that we are, when you're working on something as big as we are, for it to be perfect. I mean, if we raise the bar to nothing leaves this office unless it's perfect, we'll see you guys next year with the next update. But it does allow us to short circuit that a bit and open it up. And once we can get it into people's hands and get their feedback, once we can get it into people's hands and they start employing those methods, that gives us, that kind of bridges that gap between the smaller focused internal test team we have that tests around the feature and kind of the broader approach. So, like Colin said, I think it was a big success. We'll probably employ it in the future as it makes sense for patches.
Yeah, so I think what he's saying is you won't expect to see it for every patch,
Right,
because
for
not
sure.
every patch has this large overarching impact on everything. Because if you think about it, something like Structures Plus, it impacts every structure that's in the game. It impacts structures that are currently built. Something like the kibble rework impacts all dinos in the way that they consume and the way that they eat. So it is a pretty large change. So it definitely makes sense that changes like this are thrown to a beta before the beta to check it out and give us feedback on some of the things that you're seeing.
Yeah, it's not just bugs that we look for. We also look for community feedback in regards to,
Absolutely.
does this feel right? Is there something that would make more sense? And there are like little tiny things that we miss, like sometimes we'll require an ingredient from one map that doesn't exist in another one, and perhaps we don't notice until later on, It's like sometimes those little things slip through, and it's always good to get people's feedback along with the bug reports and stuff like that. And I also wanted to remind you guys before we get back into this conversation that if you're leaving questions in the chat, we are going to answer some of the questions after the stream, so don't feel like you're being ignored. We have somebody writing down some questions for us that we're going to look at, so we do see your questions, so don't feel like you're being ignored, because I see you.
Speaking of current state of the game, Jen, we made some changes with the sponsored mod program, didn't we?
Yes, yes. So our sponsored mod program has been like worked over, and Josh or Zenro has been doing a lot of work. So he's got the sponsored mod applications are back open right now. So if you are a modder in the chat and you'd like to get in on the sponsored mod program, definitely send in your application. You can do that at survivetheark.com. At the top, it'll say modding, and you just click on that, and there's a little click on apply for sponsorship button. And basically, if you don't know what that is that you can get paid to make ARK mods pretty much. So you get, it's like a little bit of funding for you to spend more of your time developing mods for ARK, if that's something you'd like to do. We also have on screen right now the mods currently in our program. So we have right now additional lighting and Play as Dino just entered the program on Monday. I know. I bet people are excited to see that one in the program and see what happens with that. We also have plenty of other mods in the program. We have Ecos Decor mods, the Capitalism series.
That mod is thorough.
Oh, yeah. Capitalism.
Wait, is this the one you sent the screenshot from the other day?
Yes,
Wow,
yes, it's
that's
thorough.
cool.
We explored that on stream once, and it was like, wow, it was crazy. We
That's
have
my kind of mod.
Malfunction that's on screen right now, which is a map. We have ARK Editions, Amissa and Anza, which are both maps. And we have Urban Deathmatch in the program as well. We also wanted to give a little shout out to Auction House and Saddle Emporium, which have just left our program. Those mods were awesome additions to the program, and we look forward to seeing their success outside of the program. And we hope that Play as Dino and additional lighting can, create more awesome stuff for us to see while they're in the program.
Yeah, it's a real cool opportunity. If you've ever been interested in development or just curious about it, I urge you to get the development kit and dig around a little bit. That's how I started. Prior to coming here, I didn't have any game dev experience, so the dev kit was a way for me to get in, find out some things about how a game is set up, and tinker around with things, figure out what breaks and what doesn't break, and then you just keep doing that. Honestly, that's the life of a modder. Any modder would tell you that.
That's the life of a game developer.
Yeah, it's the life of a game developer, to be honest. It's a really cool program. And if you don't know, a lot of the people in this studio, I'm not going to say a lot, but there's a good amount of people in the studio that came from the modding community.
Yeah.
Me, Zane, Jackson, Dave, we look very heavily towards our mod community, not only to provide cool content for our fans, but also for talent. So it's also a way to get noticed if that's something that you're into, or if you want to break into the industry, it's not a bad way to try it. I encourage you to keep modding. We always keep an eye out for mods. We do mod spotlights. Josh is keeping an eye out on all the cool stuff that's coming through the workshop. So be sure to keep modding. We're always going to be out there looking for cool mods to sponsor and things to push forward. So
if you're looking for a place to start, we are on the UE forums. We have a big ARK section on there. There's also a link to a modding ARK Discord on the forums there that you guys can find. And I know Josh spends a little bit of time in that Discord, and pretty much all of the ARK modders, they all chat in there. There's also, Josh has a YouTube channel for modding.
It's really good.
Yeah, he does
it is.
tutorials on there like every other week, I think. And, you know, he starts from the very basics and he's starting to do more complex things on there. So if you are wanting to get into modding, definitely check out those resources for you.
I will watch from the beginning too, because as she said, he's starting to get into more complicated things, so it'll probably require knowledge from one of the first videos to carry forward. So if you're starting brand new, I would start from the beginning and watch him. He's entertaining too, so be sure to give him a watch. All right, so we're gonna go back and talk about Homestead, even though we covered pretty much everything. Did we miss anything on Homestead?
We talked a bit about it. I mean, it's worth diving a little more. So, like, one of the things that I'm really excited about with it that we didn't touch on in the trailer, actually, we haven't showcased too much, is the tech dedicated storage.
Oh, yes.
So so Judd, who took care of kind of porting it in and you know, digesting S Plus into a version that we could release for everybody and on consoles, he created a version of it that's a bit more easy to interact with, makes it easier to put content into, like resources into, and get them out. And so it's, you know, we're very excited about that one. And then, of course, you know, obviously we did a snapping pass across everything. And, you know, when we started looking at S Plus and we were talking about pulling it in, one of the things that came up immediately was like, well, you know, Orionson made special, who's the mod maker for S Plus, made special new meshes for the triangle foundations. And they look better with his version of the foundations, the wood floor foundation, the stone floor foundation. And how do we get that to people? Like, what's the best way? We don't want them to have to rebuild their whole base and start from scratch. So Judd came up with the idea to implement this variant system, which basically allows you to walk up and interact with one of the existing structures. And if there's a different visual for it available, then you can cycle it to that different visual. And so in the trailer, you'll see the part where they're dropping the triangle foundations, and you'll notice that, like, if you pay attention closely, the wood foundations that they're snapping against, those look different than our traditional wood foundations.
Awesome.
And it's because they match up better with the new triangle foundations. And, you know, in another place that we went deeper was with the flexible cable and pipe system.
Yes.
So, you know, it's obviously the existing system was a bit rigid. It was a little hard to work with. And,
A little bit.
You know, and obviously Orionson broached kind of the idea of the subject of making flexible cables and flexible wires. And, you know, we looked at them and we're like, well, you know, it's nice, but it could be a little nicer to interact with. And so we spent time kind of refining it and iterating on it and trying to turn it into a first-class feature, which I think that we've done.
I think people are going to enjoy it a lot. I mean, cable management, Colin.
Why do you look at me?
I'm sure he's going to love it. Just so you know, he's a little OCD about his cables, so I think he's going to enjoy this feature a lot.
What you guys are seeing on screen right now is a video from the Pilgrims Project, who is a YouTuber and ARK builder. That is his Victorian mansion that he made using the Homestead beta update. It's also featured in our Homestead trailer. And as you can see, it uses a lot of triangular building, lots of different methods.
I wonder how long it took to make this. Like, it is so impressive. Some of the things that people are putting together. It's you know, just really impressive. Is that a silo?
It's a telescope. Yeah.
Oh, wow, it's like an observatory.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Excuse me.
He called it a explorer's mansion. So,
Oh, that's rad.
Oh, nice.
So it's like this Victorian style with the big observatory on the top.
Yeah, and then of course, S Plus and the kibble rework weren't the only parts of the update.
Right.
So there were a number of exploits and crashes that we fixed. That continues to be a priority for our team. You know, as we're working on something that's a bit longer term like this patch, we actually cycle through devs who are on live support. And so we've always got at least one dev who's focused on live issues and working on fixes for the next update. And there's some key ones in there today that, you know, that have been around for a little while that we're just kind of burning through that backlog and fixing. So, you know, whether it's the water well that previously could be placed everywhere, or, you know, whatever today's exploit related to platform saddles is, we're working on them. And, you know, it's I'm always browsing Reddit and kind of consuming the things that people post there and passing those along to the team. Everybody else, Jen's on Twitter and on Survive the ARK, and we're all kind of watching different avenues and compiling this data together. And we've got this world-class bug system that we're feeding it all through now.
That is
So yeah, it's good. I feel really good that we're able to strike that balance between bringing new content or features that we've promised, along with fixes to the live game.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a good point to talk about the Manic Armor.
Oh, yeah.
Boy.
There we go.
So
Mr. Manager.
You mean how much everyone loves it?
Yeah, I mean, people do love it.
here's the thing: the Manic Armor's fun. Like the Manic
It's
Armor,
so fun.
it was built to be Extinction's endgame tame,
Right.
just
Yeah.
short of the Titans. Like it's endgame permanent
Yeah.
tame. Obviously, it's a bit strong. So we're continuing to play with it. What we don't want to do is, it certainly is great at moving. It's good at attacking, great at attacking, depending on the day. We want it to continue to be a useful creature, and we want it to have a place. And so, we're taking a bit more of a methodical approach to bringing it back in, because we don't want to kill it into the ground and,
Right.
and have everybody give up on it and make it useless, because it's also just really fun to play.
It
Like,
is.
one of the things, I guess this hops back a little bit to the conversation about Extinction, but one of the things that we brought to the table as a team when we were developing Extinction was we wanted to bring new, like, what are the mechanics that we loved in different games? And for the Manic Armor, we pictured something out of like anime, like with like fast side dashes and like moving around in space. And so we want to maintain that, and we want it to feel like it's appropriately powerful. But obviously, it's a work in progress. We honestly, like, we're pulling it back, and then we like to see where the community settles, and then
Yep,
we'll
and then make-
further adjustments as necessary.
So, as you're hearing, we're still looking at Manic Armor, but it is, as he said, it's meant to be the end game tame for Extinction. So, the fact that it is powerful, it was designed to be powerful. Maybe not as powerful as it is now,
Sure.
but it was designed to be powerful. So,
Yeah, and then another one that is worth bringing up on the stream, just in case you haven't read the notes, is we've changed the mind wipe mechanic.
oh man.
Yes.
So I know this was one that the testers and people that have joined the team from the community cared about a lot. This was one that actually came out of the beta branch. So we built the Homestead update in the beta branch, and we released it. And then people said, "Well, wait, what? How do I earn these engrams? How am I going to unlock these?" We said, "Well, you can just respec." And they're like, "But I'm at that level cap already. What do I do?" And we had talked about it before internally. Like, philosophically, the key point behind having the limit to mind wipes is that we don't want a Swiss Army character. Like, we don't want somebody that can, like, for these next 10 minutes, I'm going to be the perfect crafter. And then now I'm going to run faster than the wind, and now I'm going to kill everything. And so we want to have some limit in place, but we're really excited about this change, because we think it brings it to a place where people are going to be able to be a little more agile with their character.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will be excited about this. I mean, I heard a lot of feedback on that back when we first introduced it, like, oh my gosh, because people wanted to be able to wipe themselves a little bit more frequently. And to your point, I understand why we didn't want it to be the Swiss Army knife, where every 10 minutes you're healed. Like you're perfect at everything for every situation. So I think it's a nice balance, to find in the middle, to where you are able to respec, you are able to change into a different role. You just can't do it every 10 minutes.
And it's sort of a new avenue to approach the game differently and to play the game a little bit differently.
That's right.
too.
For sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, cool.
Any more updates? Did we cover all the major hits for that update? We probably missed a couple, but I think those are probably the big things that people
Those are the big ones, I
are.
think.
Yep.
Yeah. So
think so.
that is out now, actually. So if you want to go enjoy that, it should be available for you to enjoy. So yeah.
That's Homestead. We have some questions I know that we've collected. We've got them up on screen.
There's a lot of questions.
Oh man.
Well, he
Whoa.
he put them up on screen now. So let's see. Oh, we should talk about probably the engrams.
Where
So
do you get those shoes?
Yeah, I like that one.
Well, we'll get to the issue, but I do want to talk about the engrams for Homestead. So there are the regular engrams, which are on the engram menu, and then we have the tech engrams. So do you want to talk about a little bit where do you get these tech engrams first of all?
Yeah, so Zane did a pass, and what we did was put them into the various bosses across the different maps. And so, we wanted to treat them like first-class engrams. That was an important piece of bringing S Plus to official. Like, I know if you go and play with the S Plus mod, it duplicates a lot of the existing structures in order to add small features to them. Kind of makes it a bit unwieldy to navigate the engram menu and to navigate the structures, and that's where we ended up with the variant system. And with these, we wanted them, like I said, to feel first class, and so we've integrated the non-tech ones into the normal progression pipeline, and then the tech ones you'll find through the various bosses.
The tech storage in particular, is that medium dragon?
I don't know the answer to that one offhand.
I think it's the dragon.
Yeah, there's too many. There's a lot, but
I do see that one being mentioned, so I just wanted to bring it up. But I think it might be medium dragon. Ask me on Twitter and I'll check later.
Yeah,
Beta dragon.
Beta dragon. There you go.
All right, there we go. Got it.
Someone has it. Somebody had that figured out 2 minutes ago.
All right. So we've got. Is there a PlayStation update release date? It's out now. It's out on PC, Xbox, PS4. Windows 10.
Mm-hmm.
Is Mac and Linux out?
Yeah, it is.
Mac and Linux is out?
Yeah, so I mean that's
Go
the thing.
get it.
Like the beta branch afforded us the opportunity to line these things up, and so while we were spending that extended time testing, most of the feature work was done, and so we pulled it over to console and began the console testing process. We had time a week or so ago to get it into CERT and get it through that process and everything. So it was ready to line it up. Which generally we can't always line up all the patches across all the consoles, but it is something that where we can and where we can, we would really like to, and it is our preferred way of delivering it, and so that was important here.
We talked a little bit about the new ARK team. One of these questions is there anyone who was on the ARK team before that's still here now?
Oh yeah,
for sure.
I'm still here.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Cedric.
He's still here.
Colin joined during
here.
Aberration.
Lawrence, there's a lot of team members.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And on the development side, we have a couple people who have come over and a couple people who we trade back and forth, and we sit in the same space. So like one of the members of the team, Alex, who built the Rock Drake, we worked closely with him when we were developing like the climbing capabilities of the Enforcer, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's not like all new faces. I mean,
No.
people like if you watch our Extra Life stream, for example. I mean, all of those people are working on ARK and a lot of familiar faces around here.
Yeah, and the cool thing was that, like I said, we started this process a year plus ago now, and we took over, and this team, the team that we pulled in and put together here, did TLC2, and then all of the updates through the summer, all of Extinction, and all the way through to now, and we're continuing that.
All right, let's see. Oh, here's one that I actually wanted to mention because I saw it in the chat, which is what do we do with our old kibble? And I can just say that all of the old kibble still works as normal. So you can still, if you've already crafted it, you can still use it. You won't be able to craft it in the future. Oh, we have another.
Yeah, you can craft it in the future, but there's one slight miscommunication. So it isn't usable to tame the creature that it was used to tame before. It automatically goes into the category that egg would be used for now.
Yes.
So if it uses an extraordinary egg, then it becomes an extraordinary kibble or the equivalent to that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So everything you've crafted, it doesn't get deleted or anything. Like it just carries over and it's still usable to tame something.
That's right.
So that's what you do with that. Let's see.
I see one here we can answer. So
Go for it.
There's the tethering effect in single player.
Okay.
That one's tough. I mean, the reality is The reality is the consoles have consoles have a fixed amount of memory. It's generally a low amount of memory in order to keep costs down on the console production side, and we're up against that boundary. Every update we release, we're adding new things. This update we added more content to add these new structures and things like that to add to the game. It's particularly tough when you're playing in single player because you're playing the role and your game has to process the host, the server,
Right.
as well as the client, and so it's even worse. And frame rate can suffer a bit there. Memory certainly suffers, and I think it's unfortunately there's really no way around it. Like I think unless we were to offer a different experience entirely, like that was curated for the console that could justify having like the whole world loaded. Then maybe you could talk about it. But I think that where we're at is probably the ideal middle ground, which is we bring the full content to console, and then we have to put limits in place to how much the console has to worry about at any moment, but you get to experience the full ARK experience.
Yep.
Which is the most important thing, I think.
I think so too. Yep.
Yeah, I would agree. One that I see quite often is people requesting keyboard and mouse support for Xbox.
Yeah, there's it's something we've been talking about internally.
Yeah.
It's something that would make our testing lives a lot easier.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, we have limited keyboard support already for doing things like console commands, and we've toyed with this idea. Obviously, we're not going to commit to anything here on the stream, but it is something that's on our radar.
For sure.
It's something that for sure goes on our list, and really that's said for everything on this list here.
Yeah. It's just, there's a lot of the things that kind of just go on the list of potentials, and a lot of it requires more in detail conversation than what we can have right here sitting on the couch.
Yeah, I see another one there. Are there more paid expansions for ARK? So Extinction was the end of the season pass. We are working on our plans internally for what's next for ARK. Like I said earlier, and like we said at the end of last year, we don't view it. We don't think that ARK's time in the sun is done yet, and so we're still developing things for it. Obviously, with this free update, we're continuing to add things that we want to give our players and that we know the players are excited about. And there are things that we're talking about and working on longer term that will take whatever form we decide on. But it's certainly something that's on our radar and something that we're thinking about.
There's always more.
There's always more.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that ARK's got a long life ahead of it.
Exactly.
Still, so.
Like we love making content as much as you guys love playing it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, we probably have time for like one or two more if we can find.
Why are you all good looking?
I mean, that was an easy answer. It's because I'm sitting here.
Oh, you just make us look better.
The collective up.
The aura just emanates from Cedric and makes us look better. Thank you, Cedric.
Yeah.
It's so nice of you.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate
It's
it.
a nice
Aw.
buff you give us, Cedric.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Attractiveness buff. Add to the game. There's a couple IIC, so they were curious about like graphical related options for the option menu. For example, gamma was one that I've seen. People would like to have gamma control on console.
Yeah, so that's obviously one that we're toying with. Obviously, we have that support on PC.
Mm-hmm.
The console options menu is split off, rightfully so that it can support kind of the options that make sense for console, like having a full resolution slider and things like that. Don't always make the most sense, so you limit some of those options. But I think that there are some that we've talked about, and there's always more that we're considering. So, yeah.
Very good. I think we've got time for one more question.
One more.
All right. Do we
Who's
see a
gonna
really
be the
good?
lucky person?
Do we see a really good question? Let's make it a good question.
Where do you get those shoes?
Oh yeah, hey.
You can't.
Unless you sell them.
I mean, yeah, true.
See, like,
Can you speak to the depth kit one?
Oh yeah.
I did talk to Josh. I think he was waiting for this Homestead patch to settle, and then he was going to update the dev kit. So part of updating the dev kit, you don't want to push that out when there's currently still issues in it, because then people are building mods on things that could potentially be broken. So I think once this update is good and it's settled, Josh will be updating the dev kit and getting that updated. So I would say soon, within the next, I'm not going to put a time on it. So soon.
Yeah, there's actually, I just want to answer one more real quick that I see up there that's worth answering, it's worth going over a little bit for. Will we address the lag issues? So the thing about ARK is a big game,
Here we go.
like I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And the design of ARK and the things that you guys love at ARK are at odds with performance and are at odds with memory. You like to have a lot of dinosaurs. You like to have the biggest space possible, and those things create those issues. And I would kind of frame it this way: the approach that we're taking to the latency issues, to performance issues, to memory issues, is rooted in the game design, and we're coming back and revisiting some of the earlier decisions, like the kibble hierarchy. Something like the crowd was built kind of to help with this issue. And we're adding tools to the game to allow you guys to kind of manage it as much as possible yourselves. The reality is that, I said my background is from AAA development. And the way that we traditionally address issues like this is we put hard caps in place. We put a cap of, you can have 1 dinosaur or 3 dinosaurs, and each person, there can be 12 people on this server and 20 dinosaurs. And that's why when you play a lot of other games, you experience hard limits like that. That's why a lot of them don't have the freedom that ARK have, where you can build anywhere and tame a high number of dinos and swap them in and out and go anywhere. And so we are always trying to find that line. There's a downside to it, and that is the latency and the performance. But like I said, we're constantly working on new tools to help you guys manage it yourselves. I personally think that having all of my dinos out in the world, it's cool because I get to see them all. But if I'm trading my ability to fight at 20 frames a second or 30 frames a second on the server for being able to look at my beautiful cars all lined up, for me, I would make the decision to maybe package some of them up and cryo some of them. And the kibble rework kind of helps reinforce that idea. There was an interesting progression with the old system, but it also, it kind of forced you, once you got to a certain point, to have everything and to manage everything, and to, and beyond kind of the latency issues, it's also kind of a time sink a little bit to worry about all of those.
Big time sink.
So that's kind of the approach we're taking, is to circle back to the design and look at these places where maybe there's something we could add to it, as well as obviously continue to work on the technical side of things. But the reality, again, like I said, is that ARK operates at a scale that is not really rivaled by a lot, and mostly that's because there are limits put in place. I remember back playing Halo when they added the Forge. There was a very strict limit on this is how many things that you can put down and how many meshes and stuff you can put down. And it's for that reason. They want to ensure for them it was important to ensure 30 frames a second. And for me, it is important that we have the best frame rate possible for people and latency as low as possible. But really, it's also, and maybe equally important, that everybody can kind of fulfill their ARK fantasy and kind of have the dinosaurs that they want and have the base the size they want. So it's, we got to go back and forth on it.
There's got to be a happy medium. And we try as much as possible to get to that
Yep,
place.
for
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, a perfect answer for latency and performance would not be a great answer for ARK's gameplay.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it.
It would change the gameplay significantly.
For sure. I think part of the beauty of ARK is it's that sandbox. It's literally a sandbox to where if I want to make this a Pokemon game, I can make it a Pokemon game. I just want to collect everything. If I just want to raid people and destroy bases, I can do that too.
Yeah.
It's really your heart's will, whatever you want to do in ARK, and that's the beauty of that game to me too. So the more we can try to preserve that feeling while still trying to keep good performance and making sure people have good frames, like you were saying, it's a great balance to try to find. And I think we're on the right path.
That's right. So looks like John's telling us we're out of time.
All right, we're out of
Yeah.
time.
You're
So
supposed to do this.
yeah, you're
We're
supposed
getting
to.
the wrap up.
Yeah. So thanks for hanging out with us again. As Jen said earlier, we'll try to do this when we have meaningful content to bring to you guys. So not necessarily a schedule or anything like that, but it's been cool hanging out. And we're still going to be looking out for your questions as far as on social. So Twitter, Survive the ARK, Reddit, whatever your means of trying to get your information to us, be sure to do that. And we'll be covering these things on future streams or ARK Digest or the Community Crunch. There's many different ways that we interface with the community. So with that said, I'll leave you with, remember, dinosaurs never die.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye. Thank you.